I'm Tara, and I am one of the instructional coaches here at Compass. I've spent the last 2 years as a supervising teacher, and this year I'm getting to work with you guys as an instructional coach. Kelly Cortez is our other coach. She's going to be manning the chat room today. So if you have any questions, if you could put them in there and hold them to the end, that way we can focus on getting the information out to you guys, and then we'll have time at the end for our questions, answers, sharing, and time like that. So the plan for today and for these support sessions is for us to spend about 15 minutes sharing out information with you, and then the next 10, 15 minutes for us to come together as a group, share best practices, answer questions, and come together as a group where we can all share what we know. All right, we're going to get started. So today we're talking about connection meetings and how to get started. So our essential question, what we're focusing on today, is how we can build relationships with learning coaches and scholars while still meeting our connection meeting goals. The goal for today is for us to provide you as supervising teachers with resources and ideas for successfully planning and holding your connection meetings. So the first connection meeting is its own animal. It's different than the rest. So we're going to spend most of our time today talking specifically about the first connection meeting. And then at the end, we'll share some best practices, for the other connection meetings. We plan to come back later and also have some more sessions on just connection meetings in general. So our suggestion to you is to have an agenda or a plan in mind. Plan to get to know the scholars, share a little bit about yourself, get to know the learning coach, get to know the kids. Spend some time reviewing the master agreement. Especially this year, there are some important changes. We know you've already been talking with your families, but make sure that if you haven't, this is a good time to go over those changes. Review summer learning, review last school year, new families, returning families. This is good information to start the year with. Spend some time goal setting, spend some time looking at the PLP, and also discussing the homeschool philosophy that the family is intending to use for this coming school year. This is just a suggested agenda, and it's also a lot to get through in one connection meeting. We recognize that some of these items might be taken into a second connection meeting, but it can help keep you on track if you have this checklist in mind. And one of the things that we really want you to get out of these support sessions is that not only are we sharing best practices, but you're able to take something with you to use tomorrow or next week or the following week that you can actually put into practice and use in your teaching and in your work with scholars and families every day. Okay, so as we were putting this together, we want to recognize that you guys are experts. We are sharing our best practices, our ideas that we have gathered from years of experience, but we're here to facilitate a discussion. So again, if you have questions, if there are things you want to ask, if there are thoughts you want to share, we welcome them. And if there's something that triggers something in your mind, jogs a memory, gives you an idea as I'm sharing this PowerPoint, please write it down, please share with us, because your feedback is the most important thing that we're going to get out of this session. So I'm going back to the agenda. First thing we mentioned is getting to know you. Your connection meeting is where you start to get to know the families and building relationships. Building relationships with your families is going to help you with curriculum conversations. It's going to help you have those difficult times where you need to ask them for something that you've had to ask for 3, 4, 5 times, whatever it might be. The more you can build relationships, the better your connections with your families and the scholars are going to be. So think about how you might introduce yourself in a classroom. Share something about yourself. Maybe you want to make a Google slide that has some pictures of your family, your kids, your dogs, your cats. We're in our homes, you're going into their home. The more that you can be a person to them, the better they're going to be a person to you. Invite them to share something with you. Maybe they're ready on the first meeting, maybe they're not. If they're not, spend some time asking them questions so that when they come back the next meeting, they can be ready to share with you. And then also it's really important to learn about previous educational experiences, whether it's with Compass in a brick and mortar school, in a different homeschooling environment. Everybody comes with a different set of experiences. And the more that we can understand who our scholars are, the more we're going to be able to support them in their learning. The next thing is to really focus on the connection meeting purpose. Connections really serve a purpose, and that purpose is to discuss how scholars are meeting their monthly goals. Look at their work, get an idea of the standards that they are working on. Are they mastering the standards? Where are the gaps? Where are the things that scholars need more support on? This is a time for you to talk about pacing. If you have a family that's on multiplication for the 5th month in a row, then you really need to have a conversation about how they're pacing their math units. Where are they intending to get? Why are they still stuck in multiplication for the 5th month in a row? It's also a time for informal assessment. As educators, we're constantly assessing our scholars in our conversations and looking at work and asking questions. And in these connection meetings, when you're conversing with scholars and talking with the learning coaches, you are gathering all kinds of data. We are going to come back and talk more about that in another session later. But throughout the connection, you're getting data that's going to help you to understand the scholar and help you when it comes time for grading. It's also helpful if the connection is scholar focused or scholar led. And if you have a high school scholar, this may mean that you check in with them more frequently than you would a younger age scholar. So this is a time to connect more with the learning coach. It depends on the situation, so that's obviously up to you. During your connection, especially this first one, you want to review the master agreement. You want to make sure that scholars and families understand this new mandatory benchmark assessment with Star Renaissance and the synchronous instruction component of this school year. Okay, also, you want to check in on schoolwork. If it's a new family, ask them about their previous school, ask them about curriculum they've used, ask them where are they coming from? Why are they now at Compass? Get a sense of who they are, who the scholars are. If they're a family you've worked with, check in on any work they did over the summer, review what they did last year, pull up last year's PLP. This is the time to refresh and remind everybody about where the scholars are and what the plan is. This is also a chance to discuss any supplemental curriculum they plan to use, any classes they want to go to, services, online learning. If it's a new family, it's time to gather information. What are the scholars interested in? How do they learn best? And getting some ideas for curriculum so that when they start to plan their orders, you can assist them in that. It's also a time to start setting some goals. You may not be ready to set specific goals with the scholars yet, but generally, what does the family hope to get out of the school year? Why are they homeschooling? Why are they with Compass? Do they want to do project-based? And this is also time for the conversation about the philosophy. You can come back to it later, but in setting goals, you need to have an understanding about who this family is, who the learning coach is, who the scholars are, and understanding how they set their day up, which leads us to the next bullet point. Setting up the homeschool day. What does their schedule look like? What are their commitments to Compass? What are their commitments outside of the Compass day? Are they scheduled for an outdoor learning program that takes up 4 hours on a Monday? That's important to know. And then also, what is the learning environment like? Are they learning outside? Are they inside their kitchen? Do they have desks in their bedrooms? The more you can know, the better you can support the families and the scholars in their learning. The PLP, our personalized learning plan. During the first connection meeting, you want to make sure this document has been shared with the families. This is a document that is an organized place to document notes and access important links. There's a resource page at the end of the document with tons of information. One of the things that's important to share would be the I can statements or the standards. And then also to spend some time checking that first page, making sure you have the address correct, the phone number correct, their emails are correct. The grade levels for the scholars are correct. When we go into the SIS, we want to make sure that we are correctly translating it into our PLP, but sometimes mistakes are made. We want to make sure packages get to the right homes and that we are emailing the correct email to get in touch with the learning coaches. Remind them that this is a place for you to document notes. They can also collaborate on it if that's how you're going to handle your connections. Last year I screen shared a lot to share what I was writing on my PLP. So that's kind of up to you and your families as to how you want to work with that. The other thing to review would be the class schedule for middle school and high school students to make sure you have the courses correct. And then to finally come up and talk about the homeschool philosophy. If they don't have a homeschool philosophy, at the end of this slide deck, I've put a resource for you to pull up and share, and you can talk about how do they intend to learn, help them discover what their homeschool philosophy is, or maybe they're a combination, but maybe they're that a little bit of everything and they need some more direction. That's okay too. But it's part of the conversation in helping them to learn their goals, their curriculum, and help them plan for their ordering. So overall, the first connection meeting has a lot of information. In your subsequent connections, these are some best practices that I've gathered from my work, from talking with other supervising teachers. And this is where we want your input when we come back at the end and we discuss. So the first and foremost important thing is that you're developing relationships. You're using this time to learn about the families, to engage in conversations, meet the family pets, maybe get a tour of their garden, have them share with you the things that they love. Check in with them, ask how things are going, ask how you can support them. Ask to see work that's in progress. Maybe they're working on a project and they have some pieces and it's not put together yet. They can share the pieces with you. I love to have scholars read to me. You know, those kinder and first graders who are reading love to pick up their favorite book and read it out loud to you and get that extra practice. And then if you've documented, you have the PLP in front of you, you can use that to also make sure you're asking specific questions so that you get to their specific learning goals and work samples and can help them pace and make progress through their year. Last year, I started using a flipped classroom model and it worked really well. And I would send a Google check-in at the beginning of the month and ask them for their plan for each subject. I would ask them to give me what they worked on last LP as well, just so I could keep track of where they were going and what they'd been doing previously. By the time I came to the connection, I had the PLP filled in. I had it up on one monitor. I had the Google Meet or the Zoom open on my other monitor. And I was able to add to it, but I also was able to use it to ask specific questions. Oh, show me about how you're learning about the life cycle of a frog. I saw your pictures of the life cycle of a frog and that you were going to do that in your PLP, in your check-in. It was so helpful. And the kids loved that I knew what they were working on. It's also a time to really talk about upcoming deadlines, remind people about activity logs and work samples and upcoming due dates. Everyone does this differently. I had a consistent day and time each month for my families. I had a connection with the same family every Tuesday at 9:15 on the second Tuesday of that month. Some of that works for some families. Some families prefer to choose month-by-month basis. Whatever works for you. Just make sure you have things on the schedule ahead of time. And if you don't have it, use the connection time to set that next meeting. And then keep the conversation focused on scholars. All right, let's talk. So if there are any questions, any thoughts, any other best practices that you all would like to share, this is our time to do so.
Is the first connection meeting before the first day of school, or is it after they've got officially enrolled in September?
So the first official connection meeting would be in September, but a lot of this can be covered over the course of a phone call at the beginning. Like right now, you probably are calling a lot of families. And then you would want to probably follow up with quite a few of these things again in September. If anybody has other answers, please chime in.
Well, and I was just going to add too, don't forget, we're having those mandatory pre-MA connections. And so you're going to want to be contacting your learning coaches before you're sending that MA out, once we have the green light for that.
I have called most of my families. I've had 3 answer machines and I'm trying to connect with them. But the questions about their specific
phone calls-
things, I haven't done
The
it.
phone calls are good because they're letting them know who you are and that you're going to be working with them this year. If you do set up a Zoom, then they also get to see you. So maybe do that for your next time. I know when my first year was we didn't have Zoom the way we do now, and it was all through phone calls, and it was a different relationship than I was able to establish last year when I was on Zoom, and they could see my dogs, they could see my, kids coming in and out. I could see them. They would take me on tours around their home, show me things. It just meant it was a little bit more of a special relationship because you're in their house, different than you would have with a student in a brick and mortar classroom. I know there's veteran STs and new STs that have questions, best practices. I am by no means the expert. I want you guys to help share what you've got.
I know that for me, it helps to organize and think about what I want to talk about before any meetings that I have for the month, because then I'm quick and efficient. And I think the families really appreciate that because their time is valuable just as much as my time is valuable. And so I like to lay it all out and make sure that that thought process is all laid out before we have a meeting. And maybe just being honest with the families on, okay, this is what I need for this month. I'm trying to be sorry about that, as open and upfront as possible about what the expectations are.
Yeah, and I agree. I think if you can plan, they appreciate it. And you appreciate it because you're able to get through what you need to and be efficient with your time and get that information. Some connections will take longer than others just based on who the family is. And you'll start to learn who your families are and how much time certain families need. Robin, I think I see a hand up.
Yes, I'm sure this is posted somewhere, but if someone could give me a quick answer, how often do we have these connection meetings with our families? Is it monthly? Is it after the beginning of school?
I think it's changed for this year. I don't want to misspeak. Last year it was 2. I think this year it's 1. If I want to.
My understanding is that we'll keep doing 2 if they're not showing up regularly to our live instruction. But if they are showing up regularly to the live synchronous, then we can meet once a month. That's what I've been telling my family. So I hope that's correct. I saw Charlie nodding.
That is correct. I'll just verify that we agreed to make it official that we could just have 1 on the books for the month. I mean, for the learning period, that it would just happen once, because we know that STs are investing more time now with these lessons, synchronous instruction, all that. So we're trying to remove a little bit of the workload. But if you see families that aren't showing up, you might want to touch base with them a little more often since you're missing some of that face time with them.
Yeah, the information you get during the connections is so important to understanding and growing with the families over the course of the school year. Ultimately, you're the teacher of record. You're the one who will be assigning grades to the scholars. And the more information you can have beyond the work samples, the more you know the scholars, the more you know what they're working on and their progress, the better you're going to be able to do that and do those informal assessments and see how they're progressing and making the determination of their mastery of standards throughout the course of the year.
On that topic, is there a minimum or maximum number of, minimum, I should say, minimum number of times that a scholar should be attending if we would like to eliminate one of our connection meetings, if that's the case that month?
I think you're going to have to discuss that with your coordinator. That'll be something that your director and coordinators will give guidance on. You got to remember, this is the first time we're doing this. So it's being piloted. And, this is mainly about, this meeting's about what what to cover in the meeting, but when it comes down to like the protocols in terms of what we're required to do by policy, then that really should be deferred to your program director and coordinators.
And I wanted to say what I'm telling my families is they have one connection if they come to all of them right now. So I like the idea that we'll get to work that out with our coordinators, like Aviva said. But for starting off, I'm trying to get everybody to just say, okay, well, we'll just, Stephanie says you have to go every time if you want to have one connection meeting, but I think we'll probably end up.
Yeah,
some of
it's
them
not
have
mandatory.
classes.
It's just
Right.
a great way to encourage them, but I think you can still do the one per learning period if they're showing up a couple times a week. So I would recommend bringing this up with Tricia and the coordinators so that everyone can be kind of consistent on it.
What I was going to say, Tara, when you asked about other things, like as far as getting organized or having it, what I do is I send, like, each month I have a survey, like you said, where they tell me things that they're working on, what they, celebrations from last month and what they're going to be working on this coming month. And I added to it this time, the standards that they're going to be working on in case they know them. So since we're trying to move that direction, I think. But one of the things that I do is I send with the invitation, just the list of what we're going to be doing. So I make a generic one, like this time we're going to be talking about the assessments that are coming up, or what you did last month, or whatever the things are that are happening. And then I put that in the invitation. And then that's the same list that I put in the contact manager summary. So once a week, everybody I met with gets that same, like if they showed up, I say, we had our meeting and we went over blah, blah, blah. And it's like the same list for everyone if they came and we went over all that. And the other thing I was going to say with the live connection meetings that I do is my scholars, it took a while to get everybody on board with it, but I ask them at the beginning, do you want to be first or last to the kids? So they get a choice if they want to present what they've been working on at the beginning of the meeting or at the end of the meeting. And I tell them, sometimes, your mom and I are going to talk about some boring things, like you don't have to sit there and listen to all of it if we're doing like some paperwork business or something. But I ask them, do you want to be first or last? So give them a little agency. And then sometimes they read me a book, or sometimes they show me something they're working on, or I'll say, is it okay if I record you? Like, especially if I'm missing a work sample. And I'll say, and then I'll send the recording to the parents, which they really like. And so that's just something that I put into every meeting, I'll adjust the order. Do you want to be first or last? Not like, do you want to share? And so most of them got to the point where they would then say at the beginning of the meeting, oh, I want to go first. I brought something for you. Or I'll start talking to the LC and the kids in the background, like, hello, I was going first today. So that's just something.
It's really, yeah, I had that same experience. It's really great when the kids are excited and come ready and want to share and show you all the stuff that they've been doing. I mean, I had a scholar sharing her softball uniform when she got to the softball playoffs and sharing every piece of clothing that she got for the softball team. I brought up, this is an example of the scholar update and check-in. You can see it's a Google form, scholar names. If you have a family with more than one scholar, I ask for one for each scholar. That way it's easier to keep track. A place for some updates, or as some celebrations. What are you learning from math, language arts, science, social studies, PE enrichment, and then anything specific. This is a place where often I had LCs write specific questions or things that they wanted me to make sure we addressed during our time together that was specific to either that LP or just something they were struggling with and coming up with strategies or curriculum for their scholars. So this is obviously one from May. I started it last year in October, and it was one of the best things I did, and I highly recommend it. It's a way to streamline, be organized, and utilize your time well. Keep things documented as well.
Tara, could we have access to those just to kind of see the questions that you asked?
Yes. So what I will do is I will, this slide, we will put the slides for you guys to have them, and this will be linked there. This is not mine. I took this from someone else. I do have one that I can also share out and have you guys make a copy. We'll figure out, but we will get you a copy for sure, because I think not having to recreate it will save everyone a lot of time and make it so that you have access. And then you also, what I would just do each month is just make a copy of the previous month, change any specifics that were to that month, LP number or whatever it might be, and then send it back out. Once your families are trained, they know it's coming. And I feel like if you can start stronger in the school year, the sooner you start with all these things and you build that expectation into your meeting, into your monthly communication with families through email, phone, text, whatever it might be, they're going to expect it. They're going to know that you're expecting them to get you that information. And then it just becomes something that they know to do. And sometimes they might even say, hey, I haven't gotten that check-in form yet. When's it coming? Because it makes it easier for them too. They can also kind of get their plan out, make sure that they know what they're doing for that upcoming month.
So I have a quick question about your kind of schedule then. So first week, this goes out. Second, and you have it due within that week. The second week, you're updating the PLPs to make sure they're all ready. And then you do your connection meetings on the third week usually.
It's up to you how you did it. I actually did second week of the month connections on Zoom last year. And then I did the fourth week of the month, a phone call. That's how it worked best for us, for my families and myself. I would send this check-in the first week. And then usually what I did was I sent a reminder the Friday before connection meetings were starting. If I hadn't gotten it, I had everyone else's put in the PLP, and then those families who were straggling, I would update the week of connections, like kind of right before the connections, because sometimes I only got it the day of the connection. It just depends on when you actually get the information. All right, so we are getting to the end. Is there any other best practice, any other questions that we have? I'm going to put an exit ticket in the chat so that you guys can give us some feedback. We would love, oops, that's not what I want. Hold on, I have to figure this out. I'm going to put the exit ticket in the chat. Just give me 1 second. The more you can give us information on how this was for you, ideas for the future, the better we can then support you guys as we begin this endeavor as instructional coaches. It's something brand new to Compass. It's something brand new for all of us, but we are here to support you, and we are here to assist in any way we can. So you guys are the experts. You guys can give us ideas, and we will do our best to do what we can to offer support in those areas. So this is the link to the exit ticket. If you guys could spend a few minutes filling that out, we would be very grateful. Oh, and I see Casey put, we're going to have slides, recording forms in Workplace for you guys.
Tara, I don't have a chat box.
Me neither.
Okay, we had some issues with the chat when we started the Zoom. So what we will do is we will put the link in Workplace or in the options chat. Which one would be better? Options chat and Workplace?
Workplace would be better for me.
Workplace, okay. We will post it, and I'm sorry, next time we will make sure the chat box is there. Some people had it, some people didn't. So if you can go to Workplace, we'll post it, and we'll check back in a couple of days to see all of your feedback. Anything else?
When you say on Workplace, but not the options chat, do you mean just in the news feed, or where will that?
It'll be in academic services. So where we posted about these support trainings. If you're not in that, if you're not subscribed to it, you can go into your groups and see academic services and ask to get notifications. Otherwise, you can just go into the group and see all the posts. Workplace is a whole thing to learn. That's a whole nother topic. If you need help, let me know and I can try to help you, okay?
And then just coming up, we're gonna talk about synchronous instruction on Thursday afternoon, just a real
Yes, I
quick
forgot that slide, sorry.
conversation. So we will just have another 30-minute just conversation together about synchronous instruction and what that might look like for everybody. And just have a few examples that are not anything that anyone has to use, just some examples.
And next week,
So that we can all talk about that.
next week, we'll also have a couple of these sessions as well, just to help you guys get the year started. All right, thank you all for coming. Appreciate your best practices and questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Gracias, estuvo lindo.